as we are viewed in society now. A lot of men find themselves in situations where they are trying to find themselves and they're trying to be men instead of actually being men. There's a lot of things that we do systematically simply because we're told that those are the things that men are supposed to do, but there are certain things that we are supposed to do that we don't do. For example, if you ask anyone what a man is, several people will give you different answers, and some of them are based on materialistic things instead of the actual characteristics of a person. Of that, because only a man can teach a man how to be a man, ultimately. A woman can tell you what she likes about man, what she expects from a man, but she can't tell a man how to be a man.
Welcome to JustMen, a life-changing program that resonates hope as well as encouragement. The program that gives you information and inspiration for the glory of God. I'm your host, Jeff Tate, and thank you for joining JustMen. On today's program, we have a very special guest. This is his first time joining JustMen. Please welcome Mr. AHMADRASHAD. Mr. Rashad,
yes, sir, Mr.
welcome
Tate.
to JustMen.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wow.
Been around a lot of different places. It's always good to be somewhere where there are different forms and resources for men readily available. So I want to commend you for doing this show for men. Definitely, they need that. So
Yeah, wow. Well, I tell you and I, as I say to others, and definitely to you, you add value to our program, and we appreciate you coming and just to share once in manhood, what it's about, the program is about, and then what you're about in terms of just the whole movement of once in manhood. And before we dive into that, share just briefly a quick bio on Mr. AHMADRASHAD.
Well, actually, and yes, you do have to say the mister. It's like a doctor, and I earned that. But basically, I do a lot of different things. I started out as a spoken word poet and lyricist, and I got involved in community work. I'm very, very deeply involved in the community. I consider myself a community activist, not just someone that speaks about the problems, but someone that does the work to try to help solve some of the problems. And I actually got involved with Once in a Lifetime, which is the women's version of Once in Manhood, which spurred Once in Manhood, both founded by Tiffany Love. So on that, I'm the host of the men's movement, Once in Manhood. I'm the production manager for both, and I do a lot of work with the nonprofit organization Tenacious Teens for Christ.
Wow, that's beautiful. Let's go behind the scene in Once in Manhood and describe kind of the origins of Once in Manhood and what is it really about. I mean, when we use the word Once in Manhood, you know, there's a whole litany of things that people can think about in terms of that journey, that rite of passage, and how do you come into that. So tell me a little bit from your heart, the vision and the mission for Once in Manhood and what it's about.
Well, our mission is to change basically the outlook of men as we are viewed in society now. A lot of men find themselves in situations where they are trying to find themselves and they're trying to be men instead of actually being men. There's a lot of things that we do systematically simply because we're told that those are the things that men are supposed to do, but there are certain things that we are supposed to do that we don't do. For example, if you ask anyone what a man is, several people will give you different answers, and some of them are based on materialistic things instead of the actual characteristics of a person. That's basically what we do in a nutshell. We take negative situations and turn them into positives. We don't give people helping hands per se, as we give them guidance in the right direction so that they can continue on that path and help themselves. Our goal is, like I said, it started with Once in a Lifetime, but you cannot continue to help these women without helping the men, because a lot of the men are the problems with the women. So you're sending these women that you've helped back into these situations with these men that, you know, are unhealthy themselves. So we're trying to get these men healthy in spirit and mind, get them on the right track so they can be leaders, they can be husbands, they can be fathers, they can be community leaders, they can be examples to other young men, and we can stop this cycle that's going on in society now.
Wow, that's beautiful. Share with me behind the scene too in terms of what programs. I mean, you describe Once in Manhood as a movement, not an event, but actually a program that is in place to regenerate the man, to renew his mind, to transform him. And obviously, in order for transformation to take place, there has to be a continual process of developing and nurturing and discipling. How does your program do those type of things when it comes to helping to develop a man?
Well, the way it starts typically is we do a casting call which is similar to the casting call that is done for most reality shows, which, by the way, we are being looked at as a reality show. But they sit in front of a panel of judges. They share their story. And by sharing their story with the judges get to determine who's actually in sincere need, who's actually telling the story and who's actually just trying to get some kind of form of notoriety, whether they're actually able to forgive, whether they will be someone that can contribute and help others. So that's how the process typically starts. For a lot of people, for them to share their story is exhilarating because some of the things they share, they've never shared with anybody. These are things they've been holding in. And also it works in another way, people that have gone through what they're going through or may possibly be headed towards that direction, by them hearing someone else sincerely share their story and how it affected them, it can help them in their life. From there, we continue to work with them. We put them in different situations. We have career hosts, which are people that either have the lifestyle they want or have been through the problems they've been through and overcame those problems, and pair them with them, and we eventually give them what is known as a once in manhood opportunity. And that's basically a step towards a goal or a dream that they've always had. And for the most part, most of them, when they acquire that dream, it's like a feeling of self-fulfillment. And it gets them on the right track of continuing on forward and believing in themselves and doing the things that they need to be doing in life as men.
Wow, that's powerful. I know that when we started JustMen years and years ago, it became very personal to me because of my relationship and trying to define myself and trying to come into the knowledge and awareness of who I was in God and who I was as a father and as a husband. And I say that to say that JustMen is so wrapped up and connected to my own personal life, to my own story. How does Once in Manhood connect with your story?
Well, it connects with me very deeply. For one, I'm a very caring person, which is how I got involved in community work anyway. But when these people share their stories, I'm gonna tell you, I started helping once in a lifetime, like I do everything else. I see a resource, and I find people in need, and I'll connect them. And as I got involved and I saw what they were doing, I mean, literally, there's no way you can hear these people share their stories, and tears not well up in your eyes, compassion come to your heart and you not want to do something to help them. So every person that shared their story, I still carry their story with me. So I've been through some things as well in my life. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. I've seen a lot of different things between here and Nashville, Tennessee and beyond. But some of these things these people have gone through is nothing compared to what I've gone through. So it helps give me vigor with what I'm doing because I don't focus on what I have been through and the things that I'm not accomplishing now. But it's encouraging to know that these people have been through worse, and yet they're still striving forward. And it gives you a different look on life.
Wow, that's powerful. For you to be here, I know that the gentleman had brought you and us connected together, spoke very highly of you, being a young man and being a pioneer in this walk and being an instrument or a beacon of light where there appears to be darkness or despair. And I want to talk a little bit about your life in relation to becoming that light, particularly when you have your own challenges as a young man. How do you stay focused, man? How do you keep the fire burning in you and continue to be an advocate for Once in Manhood for them as well as for the other programs that you're involved in?
Well, it's all about God, bottom line. And I want to commend those that have that calling because it's one thing for us to work a 9 to 5 and do what we have to do to get by. But when you're doing something that you feel that you love and that you're destined to do, it's a totally different feeling. And that's the way I feel right now with what I'm doing with Once in Manhood. And that's just bottom line. Everything that I do, I feel like he's guided me towards that step. Even being here now is not a chance encounter. Me meeting the person that introduced me to you was not a chance encounter. But you have to be obedient in order to be in those places, in order to continue forward upon the path that you're destined to be on.
Wow, that's beautiful. I've learned the power of one single word, and it's yes.
Yes.
When you say yes, man, to the move of God, the Spirit of God, the Word of God, and you become a vessel for Him, the sky's the limit. I mean, there is no limits at all in terms of what you can do when you say yes. And many times, especially young people and older people, are intimidated by this call that you talk about, or intimidated by doing something as powerful as what you're doing in Once in a Manhood. Talk a little bit about, you said something that intrigued me, particularly with the women. Explain to me a little bit of how that comes together with Once in Manhood. How do they work together, or are they just totally independent of each other?
Oh, no. They're definitely like brothers and sisters. The thing about it is we are all connected ultimately. So they started the women's movement, which was started by, like I said, a woman, Mrs. Tennessee Tiffany Love. And the men's movement, once they started the men's movement, that's when they designated myself as well as Chandra Hinton, who is my co-host. We hosted together. And as the leaders of that, because only a man can teach a man how to be a man, ultimately. A woman can tell you what she likes about man, what she expects from a man, but she can't tell a man how to be a man. But Once in a Lifetime and Once in Manhood movement, they're separate, yet they're together. The women do their work together, the men do their work together, but ultimately they all consider themselves family, which is how it should be. And that's what we're building. We're showing people how to work together, which in turns will heal the problems that are affecting our communities now. There is no unity in the community.
Wow. What would you say is one of the emerging issues that seems to surface with men, particularly that become a stronghold, or some of the things that men have a very difficult time in coming to this Once in Manhood? What would you say would be something that just resonated you, that you seem to hear quite often when you hear their story? When you hear their challenges, what seems to surface a lot in terms of their struggles?
They basically don't know what it takes to be a man. They're stuck in childhood-like mentality. Even the ones that are trying to be masculine are looking for some form of acceptance, some form of knowledge from someone to teach them and guide them along their way. That's why you find all of these situations where men are falling victim to selling drugs, because it's the easy way, and that's what they see everyone else they're emulating. That's why you see men having a lot of children out of wedlock and getting caught in these situations with child support and not knowing what to do, because that's what they're seeing everyone else do, and no one is showing them what to do to avoid that, as well as what to do once you're caught in that trap. All these different traps that we get caught in, men that go to jail and continue to go to jail, men that experience some form of abuse in their life and then turn around and be abusive to people that they claim to love, you know, and so on and so forth. All of these things start with issues that affect men when they're children, that they never have any form of closure, any form of counseling, any form of assistance.
Wow. You mentioned something that's very powerful in terms of men not coming into their identity or not knowing who they are. And part of that we've learned through our own environment, whether it was modeled before us or not, in terms of what was a man. I raised the question with you is, how did you come into the knowledge, first of all, of what it is a man, and how was it modeled before you to bring you or put you on this pathway that you're on now to be enlightened about manhood?
Well, fortunately, I was able to see both sides of the spectrum. I was lost even when I felt and knew I had a calling, was still trying to be like everybody else, because it's hard to be different, you know. But I've always been very observant and very caring person. So as I started seeing the problems that people were going through, in and out with these different women and their stuff thrown out in garbage bags, and you know, and living in the past, oh man, I used to do this, I used to do that before I got locked up, you know, and I started questioning, I always questioned in my mind, and the answer I always came up with was, these people really don't know what a man is. So I started asking people, you know, when you have a question in your mind, there's no such thing as a stupid question in my opinion. So you voice that concern, and that's when you start getting answers. And as I started getting answers and seeing what people's opinions were of what a man is, it just really made me want to change the way we view men in general. There's a lot of pressure on men, there really is, but on the same hand, we're not applying enough pressure on ourselves, challenging ourselves, and when I say ourselves, I mean, you know, most men in general, challenging ourselves to step up to the plate and be better in order to make those changes, be deserving of the respect that we really yearn for.
Wow, that's beautiful. You know, my next sequence of questions, and before we move into the bullying campaign and things of that nature, that your program is a powerful program in reaching and hitting the areas that not many times that the church or other organizations are diving into. But one of the things, it always is very logical to ask that question is, in your perception of manhood, what is a man?
Well, a man is about principles. Everyone knows that a man is responsible, but on the same hand, a man is accountable, which is very key with being responsible, because you have to be accountable for your own actions. You have to be accountable for society. You know, you can't just be like, well, that's not my child. No, we're supposed to be mentors to even the orphan child. You know, we're supposed to be examples to even the widowed mother. You know, and a lot of men, we're very intelligent, very crafty, but on the same hand, some of them are using those blessings and talents to manipulate and misuse those. So a man doesn't do that. A man takes responsibility for his action. A man is accountable for everything that he does and what's around him. And a man is about principles, which means if I believe something, it doesn't matter if it's 10 other people at this table and they're telling me it's wrong. A wise man will take counsel and take heed to counsel. I'll listen. It doesn't mean I get upset and I close my ears. No, I'll listen. But if I'm adamant and I have faith in that, then that's what you need to stick with.
Wow, I like that. I like that. You know, as you were speaking, I thought about when I asked the question about manhood, the first thing came to my mind is what James says in the scripture, and he talks about religion. And he says that pure religion, undefiled before God, is to visit the fatherless, the widows, those that are afflicted. And then he says, and to keep himself from being spotted by the world, allowing the world to pull him into their identity, to pull them into the materialism of identity. My definition of manhood is one who is in alignment with God, one who reflects God in every aspect of his life, and from the character to image to everything about him, it reflects God. And many times we deal with the surface things of manhood or boyhood or malehood, but not coming into what Paul says, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I thought as a child, I understood as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. That maturation process, that maturing process of letting go, as you talked about, those things where men said, man, I can remember when I used to do those things. And they continue to operate in that childlike state, not coming into the pureness of who they are in God, just like the pureness of religion. It's only pure when you begin to give to the poor, to nurture those that are fatherless, the widows. And then when you separate yourself from the things of the world, the things that are unlike your image, unlike your character, unlike your father. And so moving that to this new image of identity and manhood, one of the things that you guys are very instrumental in is bullying. Talk about bullying, talk about your campaign, and talk about how you've been an advocate for that cause.
Okay. Well, our slogan is basically stand up and man up against bullying, which, and like you brought that in so eloquently, it ties into being responsible, because we all need to take accountability for what's going on in our society. A lot of people are turning a blind eye and thinking bullying is a rite of passage or something that your child will overcome, but it's obviously very serious that people are taking their lives. You know, feel like they don't have anyone to turn to. So basically what we do with our campaign, which is something that we've taken across the nation, is we teach the importance of not bullying. We teach the importance of having a bond with your child. So this is just something we're targeting children with. This is adults. Even though adults are being bullied, and at the workplace, at home, they're being bullied too. But on the same hand, the children are the ones that are getting it the worst. They're the ones that really need help. You know, so, and a lot of times, if you could tell, these children are committing suicide, so obviously they feel like there's no communication at home. They don't feel like they're going to get any results if they tell mom and dad. It may make it worse. They only get teased more, you know, and things of that nature. So we're teaching the parents the warning signs, the importance of having a bond and communication with your children. We're teaching children how to effectively tell someone what's going on and not to be afraid to do that. We're also teaching these children that the ones that stand around and laugh and point, you know, and carry on these cyberbullying videos and comment on them and add to the feeds, they're bullies themselves. So until you say this is something that we're not accepting anymore, then it's going to continue to go on and on and on and on. So This isn't something that you just do and you say, hey, I did my good deed for the day. I did an anti-bullying rally and it was great and kids have fun. This is something what we're doing annually and we'll continue to do until those numbers go down so low that they're almost non-existent.
Wow. I know we're going to share your information, your website, and of course they can go to your website and find out exactly when your next campaign and I like what you're saying. You're telling me it's a movement. It's not an event. It's not a one-time, incident, but it is a movement. It's a continual movement because we didn't get here overnight. And obviously to break the cycle, then we have to be vigilant about the things that are right, and bullying obviously is not right. It's not the alignment, as you talked about, with manhood, the character, the integrity, the accountability, those kind of things that we look for. And then it has to be modeled. And so I tell you, you've been on this program, is definitely exemplifies that model. I mean, we have a hard time sometimes getting young men to be on a program because they feel that they're not ready. And so your program and what you guys doing is you are breaking that wall of readiness and saying, yes, you are ready. Just just walk into it. It's there for you, and don't let no one pull you away from that in terms of that. What message that seems to resonate about your organization now that you want to get across, particularly right now on our program for JustMen? What would you want the audience to know?
Well, I would definitely want anyone that's listening that feels compelled to be a part of this, please by all means contact us. Anyone that's doing something that's similar to what we're doing, or even if it's on a different path length, let's network, because my resource isn't the only resource. My way isn't the only way. We may be able to help someone else and change their lives collectively, or I may meet someone that may need your resource more. So let's network, let's get to know each other. Anyone that's listening that can do anything to help, this is something that we pour out of our own funds to make possible. So of course we can always use donations. It's 501c3, it's tax deductible. And that's just it. I just hope that people look at this and at least start to question themselves like I did. Start to question things, start to, reevaluate their thinking, and that'll at least be the first step towards change.
Wow, I like that. The first step towards change. In terms of when you move from here, and for the vision, I'm always got to keep the vision in front of me when it comes to JustMen, because there's so many things going on.
Yeah.
And every now and then you got to look back at the vision, as the word says, write it down, make it plain, so that when you run, you can read it. Even when you're moving, you still know your vision and you don't allow something to pull you off course. And it says something very powerful. It says, though it tarry, wait for it. It'll surely come. It will not lie. And so we got to be diligent about the vision as God has given us. And so I say that to say for you, in the vision of things, in once in a man and then once in a wifehood, in terms of those programs coming together, where do you see it moving to? Where do you see the vision for?
This is, only God knows that answer. I feel like He's the instrument behind this. This is something that's needed for the people. And I really don't see this stopping, because there is such a drastic need. I cannot stress that enough, in every city and across the world, actually. So we're actually getting involved in a lot of different things. Our women's movement is going behind bars to the juvenile centers and reaching out to those women. I have a meeting, and we'll be getting into the men's juvenile centers. Wow. We're reaching out to any resource we can. We're volunteering our services. We're setting up our bullying campaign at different events. So this is something that if you haven't heard of us and haven't seen us, you will see us very soon. Wow. So yeah, this won't stop. So
man, that's powerful.
Yes.
Once in manhood, once in a wifehood. I mean, very powerful when I get the concept in terms of that. Sometimes it's twisting my tongue to say it, but the key things is the contents, the substance of it, coming into manhood, coming into womanhood. Whether they're a wife or not, but coming into the knowledge of who they are in God, I think, is the most significant part of it all. And then everything else is just added.
Yes.
I mean, everything else is added in terms of whether you be a husband, whether you be a wife, whatever you do, be in one with God. That's the main thing, being one with God. And that's been our message for years, is being in one in God. JustMen just means to be upright before God, to line yourself up with God. No matter what you're doing, line it up with God. And as you do that, through love. And that's my last question with you, is dealing with is love. What does love mean in all of this in terms of your program?
That's funny you said that. My favorite verse in the Bible is 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And before I say I love anything, I evaluate that scripture and make sure that I'm falling under the guidelines of what is dictated as love. But we try to be those living examples. Do you remember WWJD?
Yeah.
Yes, and that's
Yes.
what I want people to start thinking and doing again. Seriously evaluate, what would Jesus do before you step into any situation. And me and you as men, we have a certain amount of knowledge. We have an understanding of ourselves as well as of God, which gives us a responsibility. It's not like okay, I'm safe, I'm saved, I'm safe, I know God, I'm good. No, now you have to turn around and you not only have to speak to other men, women, and children and those around you, but you have to be a living example. And that's the greatest key to love, is to continue to show love to those around us at all times. And it'll become infectious until they're showing love to those around them. And it's no longer a situation where two men pass each other and at the most you'll get a nod, what's up? We're mean mugging each other.
Yeah.
But you're actually some genuine, love, like, hey, how you doing today? Or anything like that. Helping people, helping women carry groceries. A lot of things that we used to do that we don't do anymore, it's time to bring them back, Have our women and our elders no longer shaking their heads at us, wondering what's wrong with us, but smiling at us with pride for the men that we have become.
Wow, that's beautiful. I like that. The last words of encouragement in terms of men, particularly when the men and coming into this manhood, what words of encouragement would you have?
I would tell all men to never give up. A lot of times we lose sight of hope. That's what these children are looking for with this bullying campaign. They want some hope. They want some encouragement. Men, we're all connected in the same way. Although we all seem different, we all have the same basic needs and desires. But the main thing, if I was just to say one thing, is don't abandon love and keep hope in your heart. Keep it close to you. No matter how hard your situation is, everything is a lesson. Learn from it. Don't let it beat you down. It's not over. Continue pressing forward, because you are a man, which means you were made in God's image, which means that you can accomplish whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. Just keep faith, keep God first in your heart and your mind, and keep hope.
Wow, that's beautiful. The word says, unto him that is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above what we can ask or think, according to the power that's within us, and that's God. And so, brother, you have blessed us tremendously. We've got to have you back on the program
I would love
to share more. Stay focused.
Thank you.
Man. Awesome. Awesome.